Hello YouTube, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron here, and today we are going to talk about the crossbow. So, first of all, what is a crossbow? Let's start learning the terms. Now, this one here that I have is a very light crossbow. Consider that actual crossbows used in battlefields would be bigger than this one. But for now, this example here, which is merely a replica for collection, will suffice. So, the crossbow is a ranged weapon, and it is made of a lathe, which can also be called a prod, which is basically this part here, and in this case it's made of iron. It could also be made of wood. Then you have the string, which is a lot smaller and shorter than the string of a longbow, for example. Then you have the stirrup. Now, the stirrup, which you can see this part here, in this case is merely a decoration, but in most cases this one here was also called a footloop and was used by crossbowmen during the process of cocking your crossbow. The reason being that some light crossbows could be cocked by hand, like this one here, like that. Others would require a lot more strength, or even both hands. So in that case you could actually put down your crossbow, put your foot in this ring here and use so that you could keep the crossbow stable, and use both hands to cock it. Okay? Another essential part of a crossbow is the nut. Now I'll show you what the nut is. Actually, take it from here. This is the nut. What this does, it's actually the whole basis of the mechanism. So you have it here, and you cock the string in the nut and you're ready to fire. Because as you release, or as I should say the real term, the medieval term, as you lose your crossbow, you basically force the nut to move, and then you release all the mechanical power. For some crossbows there also were mechanical devices used to cock it, but in most cases consider you didn't really require that incredible amount of strength to cock a crossbow. Even heavy crossbows with the idea of the stirrup system or mechanical devices, as I said, never really were such a problem as far as cocking was concerned. Also, with a crossbow you shoot quarrels, because towards the end of the late Middle Ages and the beginning of Renaissance, crossbows' drawing power was increased to such a point that you could actually fire bolts which had a very similar weight to the arrows of a longbow. So let's talk history now.
We know that they use them in China. In Chinese, a crossbow is called nü, and it was definitely used during the spring and autumn period, which in Chinese you say Chunqiu. Therefore we are talking about 770 to 479 BC.
Although it is not really sure that whether they were used for actual battlefield situations. It is also considered historically proved, the idea that the Greek used earlier examples of crossbows, that the Romans did as well, and mostly with the idea of ballista, so the big siege weapons. But the actual usage of crossbows and real crossbowmen troops using these as ranged weapons is during the Battle of Hastings in 1066, and also during the Crusades, because we know that during the first siege of Jerusalem, apart from the actual Crusaders, there also were units of crossbowmen. So, why are you using a crossbow? What are the advantages, particularly if we compare it to the other very popular range weapon of the Middle Ages, the bow, in particular the longbow? So, the first things we really need to consider are range, penetrating power of the bolts and arrows in comparison, and expenses. So the first thing, range. It is very commonly thought that a longbow actually has a greater range than a crossbow. Well, this really depends on which period we're talking about. Although it is true that if we compare longbow to the first examples of crossbows, then yes, the longbow will have a longer reach, considering that longbows normally have 250 to 350 yard distance. However, it is also understood that by the late Middle Ages, a crossbow could easily kill a mounted knight in full plate armor from 200 yards. And as heavy crossbows were implemented in actual battlegrounds, they could easily reach 340 yards distance range of attack. Obviously, when we talk about the furthest away it can attack or hit an opponent, we need to consider that normally a longbow will be more effective, as part of the precision will be lost. Talking about penetrating power, it is very, very similar. So both longbowmen and crossbows could penetrate easily full plate armor. But what really made the difference, and actually had crossbows implemented almost universally in Europe, with an exception for England, was the actual expenses. Arming a crossbowman unit was a lot less expensive than arming a unit of longbowmen archers. The reason being that a longbow is a very difficult weapon to use. First of all, it requires a lot more strength from the upper body muscles. It is harder to aim, as you need to keep your string drawn as you aim, and also you needed to have extensive, sometimes lifetime training to have a very good longbowman. Hence, they were a lot more expensive to pay. So, on the other hand, almost anyone could use a crossbow. History manuals say that normally the training for a crossbowman on how to use a crossbow would last a week. So obviously this was one of the reasons why it was easily implemented. It was easy to use, it was easy to train soldiers how to use it, and it was really the first easiest way to dismount a fully armored knight, which was a terrible opponent for footmen. So it was through these objects, these weapons, that one of the most powerful and effective technique and battle tactic in the Middle Ages, the charge of the knights, was rendered ineffective through formations of pikemen and crossbowmen, leading medieval warfare, particularly that of mounted troops, to a completely new different range of battlefield tactics. Moreover, the rank of commanding officer of the crossbowman corps was one of the highest ranks in medieval armies. So it is also true that a longbowman can shoot 2 to 5 times faster than a crossbowman within the same given time. But it is also true that a crossbowman can have his weapon ready to fire at any time. If you're interested and want to know more about crossbows, then make sure to follow the other video in my channel where I actually specifically talk about the mercenary crossbowman from Genoa in Italy, northern Italy. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Goodbye.